So I want you to imagine something for a second. Imagine discovering that this, like, dry, totally boring history textbook sitting on some dusty library shelf is actually a heavily coded contingency plan for the end of the world.
Oh, man, yeah. Like something completely unassuming.
Right, like you're walking through the scribe quadrant in Navarre and you're surrounded by these centuries of, carefully curated, heavily sanitized academic records.
Heavily sanitized is definitely the right phrase for Navarre.
Yeah, for sure. So you pick up a text on a failed rebellion from centuries ago, expecting this dry lecture on socioeconomics, right?
Mm-hmm.
But instead, hidden in, like, the negative space of the footnotes, you find a literal blueprint for a weapon of mass destruction.
It's wild. It completely forces you to reevaluate absolutely everything you thought you knew about the person who wrote it.
Exactly.
Because, I mean, we are so conditioned to think of secrets as these physical objects, right? Like locked in subterranean vaults or, whispered in dark alleys.
Like some big spy movie trope.
Right, exactly. But burying a world-altering revelation inside a publicly accessible academic manuscript, that is just a masterclass in misdirection.
It really is.
It's essentially weaponized history, just hiding in plain sight.
Well, welcome to the deep dive. Today, we are opening Empyrean Unlocked case file number 012.
The Deverelli Vault.
The Deverelli Vault, exactly. We've got a massive stack of sources on the table for you today, and we are going really deep.
Oh, we are pulling from everywhere.
We are. We're pulling from the canonical texts of the Empyrean universe, so specifically Fourth Wing, Iron Flame, and, the incredibly tense new revelations we just got in Onyx Storm.
Those were huge.
Huge. Plus, we're looking at field journals, intercepted missives, historical texts on the continent, and we're pairing all of that with a razor-sharp, heavily researched investigative case file from the Hellions Book Nook blog.
And our mission for this deep dive is to investigate this dangerous, truly world-altering theory that has just been tearing through the fandom lately.
It's everywhere online right now.
It really is.
Yeah.
So we are asking a central, terrifying question today. Did Lieutenant Colonel Asher Sorrengail, Violet's father, send his daughter to the isolated, magicless Isle of Deverelli merely because it was a safe place to hide from the encroaching war?
Which is what a lot of people originally thought, right?
Right, totally. Or, and this is the big question, is Deverelli's absolute geographic absence of magic actually a functional, required component of a kill switch designed to eradicate the Venin entirely?
I mean, just saying that out loud gives me chills.
It's a massive implication.
It really is. So we are acting as full-time detectives today for you guys. This is going to be sharp. It's going to be investigative.
And we really have to be incredibly careful here to distinguish between what is confirmed canon in these texts and what is, a reasonable logical inference based on the magical physics of this world.
Because there's a big difference between that and what is just wild, terrifying speculation.
Exactly. Because if this theory holds up, the implications for Violet, for Xaden's soul, and for the entire magical ecosystem of the continent are just staggering.
Staggering. So let's start with the architect of this entire puzzle, right? Lieutenant Colonel Asher Sorrengail.
Asher is such a fascinating figure because, everything he does operates on multiple levels.
Oh, absolutely. The man never did anything by accident.
Right. And the core information driving this entire theory stems from the coded instructions he left for Violet, which he hid inside a very specific manuscript.
Right, the one titled Subjugated, the second uprising of the Krovlan people.
That's the one. And in this text, he outlines two distinct, highly specific scenarios for his daughter. Scenario one is like the ideal situation.
The best case scenario.
Yeah. He says if time is sweet, Violet can study the research at her leisure. She can safely connect the historical dots between the region of Krovla, the elusive Feathertails, and the mythologized Venin.
And that first scenario is essentially him hoping she just gets to be a normal scribe,
Right. Just a quiet life.
Yeah, just an academic pursuit, piecing together a historical puzzle from the safety of the archives. He's basically hoping the war stays cold.
But he was far too intelligent to actually bank on peace.
Oh, for sure.
So, scenario two is the emergency protocol. And the tone shift there is drastic.
It's chilling to read.
He writes, if time has indeed run out and you seek the weapon to defeat those you've only learned about through lore, then abandon your robes and ride for Corden.
And then he gives her that immediate, non-negotiable directive.
Right. Book passage to Deverelli immediately.
See, the phrasing there is so deliberate. Like, he doesn't say, find a weapon in the archives and take it with you to Deverelli.
Nope.
He says, seek the weapon, book passage to Deverelli. The destination itself is intrinsically linked to the weapon.
It's a package deal.
Exactly. And the way he frames this letter to her is just, it's brilliant. He explicitly states that he wrote this entire historical study so it could be, quote, read by others but understood by you.
And that single phrase right there, read by others but understood by you, that is the Rosetta Stone for his entire methodology.
I love that comparison.
Because this isn't just an affectionate, fatherly note scribbled in the margins for his daughter to find after he passes.
Right. It's not a scrapbook.
No, this is rigorous, highly calculated operational security. Asher was a high-ranking scribe, which means he understood better than anyone that the history of Navarre was an institutionalized lie.
A lie designed specifically to protect the people sitting at the very top of the food chain.
Exactly. He knew that 400 years ago, leadership systemically wiped the history books.
They erased the existence of Venin completely.
Yeah, they covered up the truth about the wards, and they controlled the population through ignorance just to hoard the magic for themselves.
Which is horrifying when you think about the civilian costs.
Absolutely. And because Asher knew he was operating inside this heavily censored surveillance state, he fully expected his work to be monitored.
He knew they were watching him.
Right. He anticipated that compromised leadership, or perhaps even Venin infiltrators posing as scribes, might intercept his writings.
Because the scribe quadrant isn't exactly secure.
Not at all. So he buried a revolution and a contingency plan deep in the academic footnotes.
Okay, let's unpack this, because it's like taking the classified military schematics for a nuclear submarine, right?
Yeah, I like where this is going.
And hiding them inside a boring 300-page instruction manual for a kitchen toaster.
Exactly.
Right. If General Melgren or Colonel Ados confiscates the book, they flip through it and they just see a toaster manual.
They just see a dry history of a failed rebellion from centuries ago.
But Violet, she knows how to read the negative space.
Yeah.
She was trained by him to look at what isn't being said on the page.
The toaster manual is a perfect analogy. Asher banked absolutely everything on his daughter's specific neurodivergence,
Yes, her hyperfixation on details.
Right. And her trained scribe's mind. He knew she was trained to notice inconsistencies, to question the prevailing narrative.
He knew she wouldn't just take the text at face value.
Exactly. He relied on her unique perspective to decode the manual when literally no one else could.
Okay, wait, hold on though. Let me play devil's advocate for a second.
Go for it.
Are we sure this isn't just a paranoid academic? Like, we're making a massive leap here by assuming this is actually a weapon of mass destruction.
That's a fair point.
Because I'm looking at this from the perspective of a Navarian military officer, and scribes are notoriously paranoid. They hoard information.
They definitely do.
So couldn't Asher just be hiding a standard, albeit highly controversial, history book? Something that just proves the Venin exist, which would destroy leadership's credibility? Why are we immediately jumping to a magical kill switch?
That is a vital question, and it's good to push back on that. Because if this was just about political blackmail or exposing a lie, he could have hidden a confession letter in a safety deposit box in Orisha, right?
Right, he wouldn't need all this cloak and dagger.
Exactly. But to understand why this is a functional weapon, we have to look at the specific extreme destination he chose for this emergency protocol.
Ah, Deverelli.
Right. He didn't send her to a highly fortified Navarian outpost. He didn't send her to a hidden bunker in the mountains.
He sent her off the map.
He sent her to Deverelli, a place where the fundamental laws of physics and magic completely collapse.
And he explicitly writes in his notes, quote, "You will be safe beyond the reach of magic there."
Beyond the reach. That phrasing is everything.
It is, and that brings us to the geography of this world, which is so incredibly important for this deep dive. For you listening, if you've only ever looked at the map in the front of Fourth Wing, Deverelli isn't on it.
It's completely absent from the Navarian maps.
Right. Deverelli is an island kingdom entirely beyond the continent. It lies across the Arctile Ocean. And the canning fact we have to really grapple with here is that it is entirely cut off from the magic that powers dragons, riders, and the wards.
It's a complete void.
Exactly. Tern, Violet's famously grumpy and ancient dragon, he explicitly confirms this lore. He says, "There is no magic beyond the continent. It is why we dragons remain."
And that geographical isolation is the whole point of Asher's plan. It's not just a longboat ride.
Right, it's not a vacation.
No, it's a journey entirely outside the magical ecosystem. And we actually get to see The physiological reality of this when Xaden steps onto that magicless soil in Onyx Storm.
Oh my gosh, that scene.
Right. If you were screaming at the pages during Xaden's point of view chapter on the island, you're not alone. We all noticed the terrifying shift in his reality.
The moment their ship crosses the water and approaches the Isle of Deverelli, Xaden's connection to magic is it's severed.
His access to the shadows fades to nothing but a trickle.
Which is terrifying for him.
But more importantly, for the first time since turning Venin, since making that fateful, damning choice to draw from the earth at the Battle of Basgith to save Violet, he experiences true silence in his mind.
Yes. He explicitly states to Violet, quote, "No power, no lure."
No power, no lure.
When I read those 4 words, my jaw literally dropped.
I think the whole fandom gasped.
Because it completely shifts our understanding of the Venin condition. Up until that moment, we thought the hunger was this permanent, unavoidable psychological decay.
Right, we thought it was a constant screaming addiction in their heads.
Exactly. But it requires us to clearly separate 2 distinct possibilities now.
We have to ask ourselves, is the weapon located in Deverelli?
Right, like a physical sword, a staff, or an ancient Tirish artifact locked in a literal vault somewhere on the island.
Or, and this is the big one, is Deverelli itself, its very geology, its magicless nature, actually part of how the weapon works?
So if Xaden can't draw power there, it really begs the question, what makes Deverelli a dead zone?
To answer that, we have to explore the actual mechanics of Venin power.
Let's do it.
From everything we've learned in the texts, Venin are essentially magical parasites.
That's a great way to put it.
They don't have an internal self-sustaining source of magic like a dragon does.
Right, they aren't born with it.
And they don't channel a safe, filtered stream of magic through a bonded conduit like a rider does.
So just take it.
Exactly. They brute force their way into the raw magic of the world, drawing power directly from the earth beneath their feet.
They're entirely dependent on the environment providing that subterranean current.
Which means, if the earth doesn't have magic, the Venin has literally nothing to pull from.
So Deverelli isn't just a political sanctuary, it is a geographic anomaly.
Exactly.
It's a naturally occurring null zone where that environmental current simply does not exist.
Which forces us to make a critical and honestly painful distinction between suppression and a cure.
Oh, this is the heartbreaking part.
It really is. Yes, in Deverelli, the unbearable temptation for Xaden is silenced. The physical ability to channel from the earth is prevented by the environment.
The lure is gone.
The lure is gone.
Yeah.
However, Blyton remains changed.
Right.
His soul is not magically stitched back together just because he's standing on the sand of this island. His eyes might not be red in that moment, but he's still fundamentally Venin.
And the text is so brutal about this. We have canonical quotes backing this up from multiple unrelated sources.
We really do.
Think back to Jack Barlow in the heavily warded glass cell beneath Bastia.
Jack Barlow.
Right. He's completely cut off from the earth. He's heavily medicated, essentially in a magical straitjacket.
He can't reach the power at all.
Yet he still looks at Xaden with absolute certainty and tells him, "There's no cure." Well, wait, let me rephrase without the pause. He says, "There's no cure, you'll only hunger for more. You can never give back what's taken."
Barlow's state in the dungeon proves that physical isolation from magic doesn't reverse the damage.
It just pauses it.
Exactly. And then, even more definitively, there's the Zilni female they encounter later.
Oh, she was terrifying.
She confirms the gruesome mechanics of what drawing raw magic actually does to a human physiology. She says the power exchange kills the soul piece by piece, and, quote, death has no cure.
So we have a hard rule within Yaros's magic system here. You cannot simply undraw the magic.
Right, the damage is done.
You can't put the toothpaste back in the tube. The pieces of a fragmented soul don't magically regrow.
And if we accept that hard rule, that there is no cure, we have to look at Deverelli not as a hospital where Xaden can be healed, but as a blueprint for a weapon.
Okay, explain that a bit more.
I want you to imagine a centuries-old Venin sage, or even a maven, a being held together purely by vast amounts of stolen magic, their human body long past its natural expiration date.
So they're essentially walking corpses fueled by earth magic.
Yes. Now imagine forcing that creature onto the shores of Deverelli.
Oh, wow. That is a wild visual, because without the constant 5e drip of the earth's magic, their unnatural strength would just evaporate.
Exactly. Could they survive without the constant current that feeds them and keeps their ancient tissue animated?
I mean, logically, no.
Right. If they are permanently cut off from the source, do they desiccate? Do they wither away into dust?
It's like taking a smartphone that has been deeply infected with a highly destructive, self-replicating virus and locking it inside a Faraday cage.
Oh, I love that analogy.
Yeah, think about it. Inside that cage, the phone is completely isolated. It immediately stops transmitting.
Right.
It can't download more malware. It can't hack the surrounding network. And it can't spread the infection to other devices. But the virus is still written directly into the hard drive's code.
It hasn't been deleted.
Exactly. It's perfectly neutralized in that contained space, but it's not cured. The absolute second you take it out of the Faraday cage, the phone connects to a cell tower, the virus activates, and the destruction resumes.
The Faraday cage analogy is brilliant because it highlights the limitation of Deverelli as a permanent solution. Deverelli acts as a geographic Faraday cage for Venin magic.
Right.
It works flawlessly as long as you never leave the island. But millions of innocent people live on the continent, and they can't all fit on boats.
Right. So if Deverelli is just the containment zone, just a physical location where the virus is temporarily suppressed, well, wait, what is the actual antivirus?
That is the million-dollar question.
Because if standing on a magicless island doesn't fix the systemic problem of the Venin army marching across Navarre, how does Asher's convoluted plan actually kill the Venin on a global scale?
To find that mechanism, we have to look very closely at the next step in Asher's coded instructions. We have to look at what he explicitly told Violet to bring to the island.
Right.
If Deverelli is just the lock, we need to figure out what the key is.
And this is where the story pivots from an escape mission into something much stranger.
It really does get weird here.
Asher leaves these bizarre, highly specific instructions regarding a merchant named Narelle Anselm.
Narelle is such a fascinating character.
She is. He tells Violet that once she reaches the capital of Deverelli, she must quietly seek out this specific shopkeeper, and she must trade, quote, the rarest item you possess for what she needs.
And he adds a very stern warning to that directive. He says, be sure it's truly exceptional to be given what you need. Do not send another in your stead.
Which immediately tells us this isn't about Navarian gold.
Right.
It's not about royal jewels. So Violet, along with Dane, Xaden, and her sister Mira, finally track down this bookstore in Madius, the capital city of Deverelli.
The tension in that scene is incredible.
It is so intense, but not in a physical combat way. Narelle doesn't ask for a gemstone. She doesn't ask for a rare Tirish relic or some magical artifact.
Nope, she tests Violet academically.
She treats the encounter like a high-stakes oral examination in the scribe quadrant.
It's a complete battle of wits.
She points out a discrepancy, right? Narelle notes that in Chapter 14 of Asher's book, he heavily alludes to the fact that the Krovlan uprising fell apart directly because of Deverelli's intervention, but he deliberately leaves out the specific mechanics of why.
He leaves a blank for Violet to fill in.
Exactly. Narelle looks at Violet and demands to know her hypothesis. She asks why the uprising failed.
And Violet, drawing on years of exhaustive historical study, just pieces the puzzle together on the spot.
Her brain is incredible.
It is. She deduces that Krovla broke a deal. Deverelli is a nation that operates on the absolute, uncompromising sanctity of a brokered contract where, the word is the blood.
Right.
Because Krovla violated those terms, Deverelli withdrew its brokerage, cutting off their resources and effectively abandoning the rebels to be slaughtered by Navarre.
It's in that specific moment of deduction that Violet has a massive canonical epiphany.
All clicks for her.
She realizes what her father meant by the rarest item you possess. It isn't a physical object you can slide across a counter. She literally says out loud, he meant my mind.
Let's analyze Narelle's role in this structure, because it's vital to understanding the magic system's broader rules.
Yeah, let's break her down.
Why did Asher send Violet to a merchant? Why not a hidden scholar, an exiled general, or a priestess of a forgotten religion?
That's a really good point. Why a shopkeeper?
Because merchants fundamentally understand the immutable laws of exchange. They understand value, and most importantly in the context of magic, they understand sacrifice.
Ah, right.
Narelle is not a shopkeeper selling a magical sword. She is a gatekeeper to ancient knowledge.
And it's a test with incredible stakes because Narelle isn't just checking her math, she's evaluating her morality.
Exactly.
She needs to know if Violet has the intellectual rigor to understand the consequences of what she's asking for.
Asher trusted this merchant to evaluate whether his daughter had actually evolved into the person capable of wielding the ultimate truth.
Which is a huge gamble for a father to make.
It is. But if Violet had walked in and slammed a bag of gold on the counter, Narelle would have sent her away empty-handed.
So we have to ask ourselves, for you listening, why is Violet's mind considered the absolute rarest item on the continent?
It's a bold claim.
It is. It's not just that she's incredibly smart. There are plenty of genius-level scribes sitting in the archives in Bajriath right now.
Yeah, intelligence isn't the only factor.
What makes her the currency, it's that she possesses a unique, entirely unprecedented synthesis of knowledge, physical trauma, and magical exposure.
Her resume is truly singular in the history of this world. Let's really break it down. First, she was trained for years as a scribe.
Right.
This means she possesses an encyclopedic understanding of ancient history. She is fluent in dead languages, allowing for direct translation of ancient texts. And she has been trained to spot institutional lies and propaganda.
She knows exactly how the Navarian government operates and how they hide their sins.
Exactly. Second, against all odds, she was forged as a writer in the Writer's Quadrant. This gave her an intimate understanding of military strategy, aerial combat, and the ruthless physical endurance required to survive war.
She survived the gauntlet, literally and metaphorically.
And third, and perhaps most crucially, she is bonded to two dragons simultaneously, one of which is Tern, representing raw, devastating power.
And the other is Endarna, an Irid, a breed of dragon completely and deliberately scrubbed from the history books.
Right. And fourth, she is intimately connected to the wards. She literally figured out how to re-imbue the wardstone in Aricia when centuries of scholars couldn't.
She did the math that everyone else missed.
No one else in the entire history of Navarre has that specific Venn diagram of knowledge and magical access. She's the only person on the board who can see all the pieces at once.
But acknowledging her mind as the currency raises a very dark question, moving us into the realm of extrapolation.
Yeah, this is where it gets scary.
Narelle accepts that Violet's mind is the rarest item, but the transaction hasn't fully concluded. If her mind is the payment, well, what is she actually going to have to surrender to complete the purchase?
That's the terrifying part about transactions in this universe. In the world of the Empyrean, magic always demands balance.
You never get something for nothing.
Exactly. When writers channel too much power, it literally burns them out, killing them from the inside. Value requires physical or psychological sacrifice.
We must consider the terrifying possibility that Violet may have to surrender something profound.
Something she can't get back.
Right. Will she have to give up a crucial memory? Will she have to synthesize this ancient information in a way that fundamentally alters her brain chemistry, risking her own sanity?
It's entirely possible.
When Narelle talks to her about alchemy, about taking base elements and combining them under intense pressure to make something entirely new, there's an inherent volatility implied. Alchemy in fantasy isn't just mixing potions.
No, it's tearing things apart to rebuild them.
Hold on, you just sparked something for me.
What's that?
During that conversation in the bookstore, Narelle makes a very pointed, almost cruel comment to Mira.
Oh, I remember this.
She looks at Violet's sister and says that everyone has a part to play. And while Asher was busy raising Violet for this specific mission, their mother, General Sorrengail, was raising Mira for hers.
That line gives me goosebumps.
It completely reframes this entire quest. It frames Violet not as a courier sent to retrieve a weapon and bring it back to the warfront. What if Asher didn't send Violet to retrieve a weapon, but realized that Violet's mind is the weapon?
That realization right there is the exact conclusion the Hellions Booknook case file drives toward.
It just makes so much sense.
The blogger there posits that Violet's mind isn't just a shiny coin used to open a door. Her mind is the final functional biological piece of a much larger ancient mechanism.
The missing piece.
Exactly. To understand how her mind actually triggers this weapon, we have to look at the central thesis of their investigation, the three-part kill switch theory.
I am utterly obsessed with this theory.
It's so good.
It suggests that the Deverelli Vault is not a physical room containing a magical bomb or an ancient scroll. Instead, the weapon that can kill the Venin is a convergence of three distinct necessary assets coming together at the exact right time.
A triad of power, location, and intellect. Let's break down the three assets.
Let's do it.
Asset number one is Deverelli itself, the magicless environment. The physical location where the Venin connection to the Earth's current is organically severed. It provides the environmental blueprint for the silence.
Asset number two is the Irids, the forgotten, camouflaged seventh breed of dragon who possess ancient, hidden knowledge of magical balance and, crucially, magical severing.
They are the keepers of the old ways.
And asset number three is Violet's mind, the unparalleled synthesis of scribe and writer required to translate the ancient Irid knowledge calculate the magical physics, and actually activate or direct this massive severance across the continent.
It's like a combination lock on a bank vault that requires 3 separate tumblers to align simultaneously.
That's a perfect way to visualize it.
Deverelli provides the location and the physics. The Irids provide the raw magical method. And Violet is the living catalyst that binds them together.
To support this massive theory, we have to look backward at the established canon rules Yarrow's laid out for us regarding the restoration of the wards, which was, the entire central conflict driving the plot of Iron Flame.
Right, the agonizing trial and error process of trying to raise the wards at Eretia to protect the civilians from the Venin army.
Let's walk through that process for a second.
Sure. Remember the mechanics of the wardstone. Violet translated Lyra's journal, which outlined the required components. It required the combined dragon fire of the 6 recognized dens.
The black, blue, green, red, orange, and brown dragons.
Yes. They gathered the 6 breeds, they channeled their fire into the stone, and it ignited. But the wards were flawed. They failed to hold.
The translation of Lyra's journal was either incomplete or deliberately tampered with over the centuries.
They were missing a crucial variable in the mathematical equation of the magic.
It wasn't until Violet realized the truth about Andarna that they succeeded.
Exactly.
The magical equation needed the 6 and the 1, the 7th component, the Irid. When the standard 6 dragon breeds, representing the conventional magic system of Navarre, were completely insufficient to solve a catastrophic magical problem, it was the forgotten 7th breed that changed the entire equation and made the impossible possible.
It's like trying to bake a complex loaf of bread with just flour, water, and heat.
Okay, I'm tracking with you.
You can knead it and bake it all day, but you're just going to end up with a hard, dense brick.
Right.
Until you add the yeast, the invisible, living, volatile catalyst that operates on a completely different biological level, the bread won't rise. And Andarna and the Irids as a species are the yeast in this magical equation.
That's a fantastic way to visualize it. The author Rebecca Yarros has already established a hard narrative rule here. When the conventional, highly regulated magic system of Navarre fails to stop a threat, the solution inherently lies with the Irids.
It suggests that the Irids don't just channel magic the way other dragons do, acting as simple batteries for riders.
They are more than that.
They seem capable of stepping entirely outside the known, rigid system. We've seen Andarna do impossible things. She can change her scale color and camouflage completely.
She manipulated time as a feathertail.
And her kind can survive out there, beyond the continent's borders, in places where other dragons flat out refuse to go.
But this is where we have to critically evaluate the evidence. I know it's a compelling theory, but is fixing a defensive shield truly the same thing as building a biological or magical kill switch designed to permanently alter the Earth's magical flow?
That is the exact pushback I was waiting for.
Right, because fixing a wardstone is essentially just turning a giant router back on. It's a defensive, contained act of magic.
It's local.
Permanently severing Venin from their power source on a global scale is an offensive, world-altering act of destruction. We might be connecting dots on a corkboard with red string just because they look cool next to each other.
It's a completely valid skepticism. We cannot simply assume that because Andarna's fire fixed the wards, her species automatically holds the blueprint to curing or killing the Venin.
Right.
However, to address that skepticism, we have to consider why the Irids are completely absent from the continent.
That is the huge mystery.
Their disappearance wasn't a tragic accident. They didn't just wander off across the ocean and get lost centuries ago. They have been intentionally hiding. They have been watching.
Which brings us to the most unsettling revelation we get about Andarna's origins. We learn canonically that Andarna was not abandoned by her kind when she was left alone as an egg in the hatching grounds of Bastia.
It wasn't an act of neglect at all.
No. She was left behind deliberately as a criterion.
Let's define what a criterion is in this specific philosophical context. A criterion is a principle or standard by which something may be judged or decided.
She is a literal measuring stick for her species.
Precisely. She is evaluating, and Andarna is measuring humanity. She's the appointed gatekeeper, observing whether humans have evolved past their worst, most destructive instincts over the last 400 years.
Which is absolutely terrifying when you look at humanity's track record in this series. We're not passing the test.
Not even close. The implications of her being a judge are just chilling.
Yeah, they are.
If we follow the logical path that the Irids possess, ancient knowledge capable of altering or severing magic entirely, the exact knowledge needed to end the Venin, we have to ask a hard question. Why haven't they shared it?
Right. Why hold out on us?
Why would a supremely powerful ancient race of dragons just hand a kill switch over to a human being?
Especially these human beings. Look at Nevarian history. This is a species that actively weaponizes dragons for petty border disputes.
They slaughter each other over territory constantly.
The leadership literally executes the children of rebels and forces them to watch their parents burn, then conscripts those traumatized kids into a death camp.
The writer's quadrant is essentially a meat grinder.
And they systematically rewrite history, burning books and assassinating scribes to hoard power. And worst of all, they willfully ignore the slaughter of innocent civilians in Poromil, watching them get drained by Venin, just to keep their own defensive wards strong.
It's like giving the nuclear launch codes to a hyper-aggressive toddler who just figured out how to throw a tantrum when they don't get their way.
You simply don't do it.
The toddler lacks the wisdom, the restraint, and the moral compass to understand the global devastation of the weapon they are holding. They're just going to blow up the house.
So Violet's mission on Deverelli isn't just a complex academic puzzle she has to solve. It's a moral trial for her entire species.
The pressure on her is immense.
She doesn't just have to figure out how the weapon works mathematically. She has to stand before the ancient Irids and prove to them that humanity won't immediately use this magical severance tool to enslave the remaining dragons, or wipe out the griffin flyers of Poromil, or hoard all the remaining magic in the world for a select elite few.
She has to prove they are worthy of the kill switch.
And that profound realization brings us to the darkest, most dangerous part of this entire investigation.
The part that the fandom is honestly dreading.
If Violet does manage to convince the Irids to help her, and if she does figure out the alchemy of her mind to pull the trigger on this kill switch, what is the collateral damage?
We have to seriously challenge the fantasy of a clean victory here.
Yeah, this isn't a fairy tale.
We can't just assume it's going to be a happy ending where the bad guys lose their magic, Xaden is miraculously cured, and everyone else goes home to a feast at Basquiat.
We must present the counter-arguments to the perfect weapon theory clearly for you listening. First, Deverelli might just be exactly what it appears to be on the surface. A safe, magically neutral meeting place to broker an alliance out of the reach of Venin spies, because the Venin literally cannot operate there.
Like a diplomatic safe zone. The Switzerland of the Empyrean universe.
Yes. Second, the weapon Asher refers to might just be tactical information about Venin biology, not a magical severance mechanism.
Also a very real possibility.
And third, and most importantly, we must remember Aegon's unchanged soul on the island. The dead zone suppresses him, but it does not cure him.
That's the sticking point for me.
If Violet's kill switch merely replicates the Deverelli effect on a global scale, what does that actually mean for the millions of Venin? Do they instantly die when the connection is severed, or are they just permanently depowered, psychologically damaged humans roaming the earth with an unquenchable thirst they can no longer feed?
That is a horrific thought. A continent full of starving, depowered addicts.
Right.
But let's look at the absolute worst-case scenario. Let's assume the kill switch does work flawlessly. It permanently severs the Venin from the Earth's current across the entire world.
Okay.
If you create a weapon that fundamentally, permanently alters the way raw magic flows from the Earth to a living being, how on earth do you control the blast radius?
That is the ultimate moral dilemma Yaros has been building towards since Book 1.
Magic in the Empyrean universe is not isolated. It is a deeply interconnected, fragile ecosystem.
Everything is tied together.
If you sever the invisible threads that allow a Venin to draw power from the Earth, what happens to the massive threads that connect a dragon to their chosen rider?
Oh man, the bonds that keep the riders alive.
Exactly. What happens to the dragon bonds? If the underlying flow of magic in the world is cut off, suppressed, or fundamentally altered to starve the Venin, do the dragons lose their own internal magic?
Do they lose their sentience?
Do they die?
If the magic is suppressed globally, Agadon's shadows just disappear. Violet's lightning is gone forever.
The loss of signets would be devastating on a personal level, but on a macro level, we have to talk about the wards.
The wards are everything.
The wards that protect the major cities are powered by the ward stones. The ward stones are imbued by dragon fire, which is pure magic.
Right.
If Violet activates a kill switch that dampens or destroys the magic system to eradicate the Venin, the wards will inevitably fall.
Without the wards, millions of innocent civilians in Navarre and Poromil, people who have relied on that magical dome for 400 years, would be left entirely defenseless.
Entirely exposed.
Not just against whatever is left of the Venin army, but against conventional warfare, famine, and exposure.
It forces Violet to weigh the cost of absolute victory against the survival of the world she knows.
If you are listening to this right now, I want you to put yourself in Violet Sorrengail's boots for just a second. Imagine you have endured the physical torture, the betrayals, the loss of your friends.
You've lost so much already.
You have solved your brilliant father's impossible puzzle. You are standing in the capital of Deverelli with the ancient Irids. You are holding the metaphorical scissors.
The power is in your hands.
You have the power to cut the cord that feeds the Venin, ending a brutal war and saving millions of soldiers from being drained into empty husks on the battlefield.
But you also know that making that cut has a cost.
You know that those same scissors might violently snap the bond connecting you to Tarn. They might sever your connection to Andarna, leaving her defenseless.
They might kill your friends who rely on their signets to keep their hearts beating.
And they might erase magic from the world forever, plunging the entire continent into a vulnerable dark age. Do you make the cut?
It is an agonizing, impossible choice. It's the ultimate test of the dual identity she has forged.
Scribe and writer.
The writer in her wants to strike the decisive blow and win the war at any cost. But the scribe in her, the historian raised by Asher, knows the devastating, multi-generational cost of deploying ultimate weapons.
We are looking at a tragic scenario where defeating the great evil requires sacrificing the great wonder of their world.
To wrap up this incredible investigation, we have to acknowledge that Lieutenant Colonel Asher Sorrengail was playing a game centuries in the making.
He was so far ahead of everyone else.
He didn't just leave a conventional weapon locked in a dusty vault for his daughter to find. He left a breadcrumb trail, a masterfully coded sequence that led to a magicless island pointing directly toward the forgotten judges of humanity.
And requiring the rarest mind in Navarre, a mind perfectly balanced between the preservation of history and the ruthless necessity of warfare to piece it all together.
And regarding the Hellions Booknook theory, what is our final verdict?
I have to deliver the archive verdict. Case open.
Case open. I agree.
The circumstantial, geographical, and thematic evidence is incredibly strong that Deverelli's dead zone, the ancient knowledge of the Irids, and Violet's unique mind form a triad meant to end the Venin threat once and for all.
However, the exact mechanism, how the severance actually works, whether it's alchemy or something worse, and what it ultimately costs the magic system, remains unconfirmed canon.
We have all the puzzle pieces laid out on the table, but the final, complete picture is still locked away.
It's a massive puzzle that is still unfolding before our eyes, chapter by chapter.
And it leaves us with one final, lingering question to mull over as we wait for the next piece of the story to drop.
Oh, good one.
If Deverelli's absolute silence, its total lack of magic, is the ultimate weapon against the Venin, what unbearable price will Violet Sorrengail have to pay to carry that silence back to the continent?
A truly haunting thought to end on.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the source material. Remember to keep questioning the history you are taught. Always look for the secrets hidden in the negative space of the footnotes, and we'll see you next time.